So lately, I've been quite interested and wondering about the construction of dome-shaped homes, and I've been attracted to this idea for some time now, a few years, because I believe dome homes could be constructed faster than conventional squared, straight lined homes. They could be a lot tougher, more resistant to the elements, the climate, the weather, winds, snow loads, all kinds of other heavy rain, etc. Even perhaps some flooding, a degree of flooding, hurricanes, tornadoes, etc. They could be cheaper to construct, to build, and they could be built on a mass scale, meaning they could be a lot cheaper, not only cheaper but more widely distributed and more accessible to people of lower income. And of course, of domes of different sizes, made of different materials. But I've been just lately, I'm talking within the few last days or so, more interested in the domes constructed from blocks or concrete blocks or concrete bricks. I just say that because before I was more interested in domes constructed from cheaper and more accessible, more manageable, lighter materials such as wood, some metals, and other perhaps composites. But I began to notice and I learned that domes constructed of wood and other materials like steel and composites could become a lot more complex to build than even a home, especially since homes and the infrastructure, the supply chain for homes is already in place. It has been established for many decades, and materials, lumber, sections of wall, sections of plywood, all of that is already cut and manufactured and ready for purchase and to build exclusively conventional homes, straight lined homes, square homes, rectangular homes, etc. And you would have to get extremely creative, extremely inconvenienced to build a wooden dome using materials meant for straight homes. It could be done. I believe I demonstrated it on my design for the dome home project. However, it could be a more expensive and more or lengthier project than even a straight home, a conventional home. And again, more expensive, more costly, more inconvenient, having to spend more resources and time. Yes, it would be a more superior structure. It would be a more resistant structure. However, I believe concrete, whether it be poured or block by block construction, is not only a more resistant and superior structure, but also cheaper and faster to build. And I believe this because of a system that I am still developing. I have not worked out every detail about it, but I believe I have come to the crux of this method. I believe I have come to the basic, the core concepts of it. And as I mentioned before, domes, I believe they could be built faster and in a larger magnitude than conventional structured homes, because of the fact that you can construct a dome by revolution, by revolving a section of a dome. All you have to do is build one section, or cross section as they call it, which is basically a slice of, let's say, a bundt cake or a cake. A bundt cake, if you don't know, is a cake that was made from a mold. It usually looks like a dome, more or less, with a hole in the middle or a dip in the middle. So it looks very much, more or less like those Jello or gelatin pieces, or cake looking pieces would look. That would be round and more like a cone shape, round on the top. Anyway, that's you can build a dome again by just building a section of that, like a slice of that whole pie per se, and revolve it. Basically keep building sections side by side in a circular manner, basically with a common center, and revolving it, just going around the circle, and keep building that, and then you have a dome. And if there's a way to automate that, or at the very least have a method, a system that builds the dome by revolution, by revolving that section, then you have a system that is very quick, that is very efficient, that is basically repeated time and time again, and it's the same or almost the same steps, almost the same procedure each slice. Then you can move quick and go around the horn, or go around the circle, and build this dome in a very quick manner, in comparison to a conventional home that you have to do and build each and every part very differently, specifically. Let's say if you're going to build the wall for the entrance, it's going to be different from the wall from the side, and it's going to have to be different from the inside walls, and it's the framing for the roof is going to be very different from the framing from the walls. And this takes a whole team of people. If you're going to build a home with any efficiency, this takes very skilled people, very specialized people. You have to have a crew for the foundation, a crew for the outside walls, a crew for the inside walls, a crew for the roof area, the ceiling, the attic area. I mean, this is a very time-consuming and resource-consuming effort. So building a dome I believe as long as you build a very tough and resistant and durable shell, that is 90%, 85%, or at least 75% of the structure. A dome has the advantage that is all in one. You don't really have to worry about a roof or walls or the frame for the roof and the walls. The frame is just one. Roof and wall and exterior walls are all in one, and that is one of the major advantages of a dome. It is a single structure that could be basically lived under as is, no interior walls necessary. Once the shell is constructed of very tough materials like concrete, then you can proceed with the interior and build as you wish, build to suit. And this could be very conveniently done. You're going to be covered from the weather at that point, sheltered from the weather. For the most part, you're going to have an easy time just dividing, making the divisions with very conventional methods, such as wood, drywall, plywood, whatever you wish, even wood and paper. You can even choose to have curtains divide the structure. You can even choose not to divide the structure at all, live in it as is, if you or the inhabitants will be just like, let's say, like a single person or a couple or a small family, maybe a couple and a child. They may choose not to divide the entire structure and just live in different areas, divided only by perhaps the furniture. But going back to the construction method that I am interested in, that I have been thinking about, and even making some preliminary designs and drawings for, is for steel reinforced concrete dome shell. The main method I'm thinking about is by using custom-made bricks or blocks, if you want to call them blocks. And all that needs to happen is just to have a cross section or a complete section of an arc, meaning that you can have half an arc or an entire arc, a complete arc from end to end, with the more like a rainbow, with starting points at the floor level, going up, curved into the center, and then curved back down to the opposite end to floor level. That's an arc. And you can build an arc section of the dome, to its length, to its circumference, to its radius, and make it out of either metal, wood, whatever method, or construction frame is more convenient and accessible, and somehow make it to where it can revolve in place in the center of the dome floor plan or floor area, presumably, or it is planned that the floor and the outer foundation, I believe they call it the outer ring foundation, which is basically like a ring made with concrete and reinforced steel, made around the perimeter of the dome where the walls will be, and this is to provide a footing for the walls of the dome, and provide anchoring for the walls of the dome down to the ground. And presumably also you want to have the floor already poured concrete, or it could be a reinforced concrete. It doesn't have to be reinforced, I believe, because of the loading. It's just going to be furniture and persons, and really doesn't need to be reinforced. However, the perimeter would be reinforced, perhaps with rebar, long, perhaps 4 foot long rebar pieces sticking straight up from the ground or vertically, and about half of that would be left exposed from the floor line up into the air for basically anchoring those to the walls of the dome. So basically, once you get that center structure arc or half an arc made, attached to a center pole, which is likely to be round, a cylindrical pole, whether it be metal or steel, then you can go ahead and attach that structure to the center pole, and on the edge of this arc would be a place to stack up the bricks or blocks. Let's call them blocks. The custom-made blocks, one on top of each other. Of course, blocks usually have voids or holes in the middle, so you can insert the rebar and then stuff with poured concrete for fastening those steel reinforcements or the rebar. Rebar is basically a short for reinforcing bar, I believe, and basically you can stack each block one on top of each other. The design would call for basically bigger blocks on the bottom, and then gradually they decrease in size, or less blocks are used, or blocks to be cut in smaller sizes. Perhaps you can have 2 large blocks on the bottom, then 1 3/4 of a block on the next row above that, and then 1 whole block and a half of one right above that, and so on. That decreases the width of this shape, this arc that goes up, with the smaller blocks, of course, all the way in the top at the summit, and then increasing in size once it goes back down. Of course, the blocks would have to be stacked from the bottom to the top, and that is how that would work. And then once you stack that whole arc, you can slide. Once that is cured, dried, or mostly dried and cured, you can slide that structure from under that arc and place it in the next, right next to that arc on each end. Of course, the structure is going to be, once it is rotated, it is going to be placed slightly to the right on one side of the existing arc, and slightly to the left on the other side, on the opposite end. And there you can once again stack up your blocks with mortar or with poured concrete in between them, of course, and stack up your next arc with blocks. And that sequence, that method would continue until the dome structure is made. And of course you would once you can put that and make sure you mark that not only in your design, your drawing, but also on the ground. You would make markings to where the windows and door openings would be, and then you can leave those voids as you build the arc, as you build the dome. As you go around, you would leave voids for the doors and the windows, of course, and those voids are to be round. Avoid square voids, because that only weakens the dome structure. The loading of the structure would fall on straight edges, which are again weak by nature, inherently weak, and it is going to weaken the whole structure, and it's going to perhaps balk and collapse, at worst collapse at those locations, at the windows or door locations, in the event of an extreme load being placed on those points. Perhaps earthquake or a tornado or whatever. Round edges is what you want, and that is the basic concept of this construction method. Of course, the details have to be shown on designs, on perhaps drawings, construction drawings, perhaps even on some sort of 3D model, or perhaps even in a physical model, a small scale or scaled down model. So hopefully with this explanation, even if you're not looking at the actual structure, you can more or less envision it and analyze it in your mind, think about it, and even draw it out, and even come up with a system where you think this might work. From there, I can even envision also using poured concrete in an arc structure that could be somehow shaped and sealed and kept in place, basically for the poured concrete to run into the shape of this arc using some sort of mold. And then once that concrete is cured, or mostly cured, this mold could be opened, slid right under it, and placed right next to it, and the closed again, and concrete poured again, and this step or method would repeat and up until the structure is complete. Once if the poured method is used, of course it's going to be a little more tricky or trickier to insert reinforcement. Perhaps other type of reinforcement would have to be used. Perhaps mesh, perhaps thinner and smaller bars, or reinforcing wire instead of rebar. But I believe it could be done even without reinforcement. Concrete sticks to itself, especially when it's done in quick succession, relatively quick succession, meaning that you don't wait for the concrete to entirely cure and then you go ahead and go ahead and pour the next section right next to it. Or you can use horizontal reinforcement in between each section, and that's how you would link each section on top of the adherence that the concrete would have to itself. From section to section, you also would have reinforcement, whether it be steel mesh or steel wire, steel rebar, horizontally or side by side. And I will come up, hopefully, during this chat, I'm also showing, I probably will also show some of the drawings I've made, sketches, and building methods for this, which is the most important part. The method to build the dome, the shell of the dome, which I believe is the most important part. And once that is more or less perfected, more or less worked out, all of the kinks and bugs are worked out, then I believe it's a method that could be very efficient enough to lower the cost of constructions of even large domes, or domes for larger families, such as larger diameter domes, 20 foot or more, and even larger height domes, such as close of 20 foot high or more. So thank you very much for listening. I hope this is information that many of you can use for the construction of domes. Many of you can probably perfect it, improve it, and even become builders for domes. I believe, again, domes could be revolutionary, could be something that could become popular, could become commonplace, could be something that changes the landscape of housing, especially in the tropics where hurricanes are common, in areas where tornadoes are possible, even in areas where earthquakes are possible. Domes, I believe, could be the answer to prevent a lot of death, destruction, suffering, damage. Even areas that are cold, very cold, that get heavy snowfall, domes can be very, very effective, very, very convenient and useful. And areas that are very, very hot, I believe domes could also be very, very effective and useful, such as deserts, such as arid areas, and even areas of where sunlight is just punishing such as, the areas around Death Valley here in the United States, areas in the southwest, southeast California, the southern Nevada, southern areas of Arizona, etc., New Mexico, northern Mexico, and similar areas, even some areas in Australia that are unforgiving in the summertime. I think domes could be very useful shelters for all kinds of things. Also, domes could be used for, as I mentioned, shelters, specifically for shelter purposes in the event of emergencies such as hurricanes, tornadoes, even earthquakes and floods and other natural disasters. A large dome, for example, could be built in an area where, let's say, hurricanes are common, and the areas or the homes in the area are of low resistance, low durability, areas where the people are of low income, very poor, and the homes are very simple and feeble. So a concrete dome could be built in that area, used for whatever useful purpose it can have, such as a school, such as a youth center, such as a hospital, or some sort of storage of food or whatever. And it can duplicate that. That would be its secondary purpose. Its primary purpose would be emergency shelter. So in the event of a hurricane, for example, it would be emptied out of any kind of, let's say if it's a school, it would be emptied out of every school material, furniture it has, and made to take as many people as safely as possible as shelter, and people could take shelter there. The people that cannot evacuate the area would take shelter there. Perhaps the school's furniture could be placed to the side, or even placed at another building not as resistant, and people could be sheltered in the dome from the surrounding area. And that is just one example of how a dome could be used, a concrete shell dome. Thank you very much. I will leave it at that. If you have any comments, if you have any suggestions, criticisms, please leave them here where this chat is posted, and I will hope that you listen to my next chat. Thanks.